Nom Nom delivers fresh food with whole ingredients backed by veterinarian science. Science tells us that a dog's health starts in the bowl, so improving their diet is one of the best ways to help them live a long and happy life. Nom Nom's food is full of proteins your dog loves and the vitamins and nutrients they need to thrive. All you have to do is order, pour, and serve. Ready to make the switch to fresh? Order Nom Nom today. Go to https://trynom.com/curveball and get 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's https://trynom.com/curveball. Plus, Nom Nom comes with a money-back guarantee. If your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. No fillers, no nonsense, just Nom Nom. Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by Dr. Juan Santos. He is a licensed mental health counselor, author, speaker, course creator, and the founder of Santos PLLC. His company's mission is to help individuals, families, and couples heal and move forward. So we're going to be talking to him about his story and everything that he's up to. Dr. Santos, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate it.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
That's that golden question, right? Like telling people about yourself. And this is one where, I always look at where do I start with the story? And maybe I'll start with my childhood. I think it's a good place, especially with living the dream. I was born in Dominican Republic, shares the border with Haiti. And if you're not familiar with where that's at, I'm in the U.S. So if you look at Florida, keep going down past the waters, Dominican Republic is going to be out there, small island, third world country. Growing up there, we grew up in poverty, a different style of poverty. It's interesting. I remember as a kid seeing this net over my bed, and the net was to keep out the mosquitoes. And those are just some of the moments, some of the stories. And then at some point, my family, the American dream, brought us over to the U.S. And that really became instilled. I think part of, if you're listening and you're an immigrant too, maybe that's part of that bloodline where you're looking at how can you help others while leveling up in life? How can you support others while moving forward? And life was very kind to me and to those around me, where now I find myself in a position to support others as a clinician, as a coach, being able to connect with individuals that are willing to take that journey of bettering themselves.
Well, I know that, you've been featured all over the place and like radio, TV, and podcasts and all that good stuff. So tell us about that, and also tell us what made you start to doing the things that you do now.
Yeah, I've had a wonderful opportunities to be featured on TV in my local area, featured as one of the top 3 marriage counselors here in my local area. And I don't always like to go into those of, here's where I've been featured, or here's a magazine or a reporter that's reached out. Instead, I look at those as opportunities of throwing out a ripple effect, being able to maybe show up on TV and talk about how to navigate anxiety. Or if I have a journalist reach out on how to support couples that are at the brink of divorce, but they want to make it work, they want to overcome challenges, I'm able to say, let's do that. Let's set up a time, let's communicate, and then showcasing. And I'm showcasing their strengths and showcasing their education and experience that I've had throughout the years. But with that larger effect, the larger effect of here's this little stone we're going to throw in the water. And all the viewers, all the listeners, very similar to your podcast, everyone's listening. And as they're listening in, they're taking that information from you. and they're looking at how can they use that information to improve different aspects of their life. That's that that's that nugget that I strive to continue to wake up and go after each day.
Well, speaking of couples on the brink of divorce, talk to the listeners about maybe somebody out there who an affair, was had during their relationship. So talk about how you help couples heal after having an affair.
Yeah, I'd love to. Relationships is one of the key areas that I focus on when it comes to coaching. And when we look at relationships, there's of course the topic you brought up, how to heal after an affair. And within that, Curtis, there's the relationship that has these two sides. And it's you as a person being able to have this healthy relationship with the reflection in the mirror. And that's you getting out of your own way, you being accountable, you being vulnerable, you being able to acknowledge, you know what, I raised my voice here, and that's gonna really hurt this communication that I'm having with my partner. And that's all about you. So that's one aspect that I work with individuals on. The other aspect is the relationship with those on the outside. How are you showing up to be a listener for your partner? How are you showing up to acknowledge in what manner do they want to receive love and give love? And then when we look at the area of affair recovery, that's a big map there. And there's different components that I'm supporting individuals on. We often begin with the rug being pulled under your feet. If you look at one of the first experiences that takes place after an affair is, and again, you want to imagine it that way. You want to think about yourself on this rug and someone pulls it, and that's going to hurt. That's going to be pain you're going to feel. And the individuals often experience pain, suffering, sadness, numbness, anxiety, all these mixed emotions. And it's working with that and that working with them in that heavy space to look at how can we slow things down a little bit? How can we give space to heal, to address those feelings together collectively, and then as well as individually, so that this couple is able to come together. And I'm going to quote here one of the authors that I really enjoy, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and is thinking about the end in mind. Like, what is that end result you're wanting? And then supporting these two individuals on an individual level and on a collective level to look at that end in mind, coming together to do that work.
Let's talk about another hot button topic, workplace relationships. Give us some tips on how to improve workplace relationships.
Workplace relationships. Most of us, if not all of us, to some degree have had a job. And it could be a paid job, it could be a volunteer one, it could be an internship because you're a new student. So to some degree, there's going to be that mental health component taking place in a workplace. Before we even go there, let's just think about, and this is something I'm going to pull out from NAMI, an organization that focuses on mental health. There's a statistical figure out there that we need to highlight. 1 in 5, right? 1 in 5 adults experience a mental illness. And when you think about that, you look around, Curtis, and you're like, okay, I probably got 5 friends I've run into. I've probably been in an elevator with 5 other people. I've probably been on a plane with 5 other people. And that there's a loudness to that. That's something that we have to focus on. Then we acknowledge that in the work sector. This work sector has an environment that we're wanting to grow, wanting to use that money to level up our lives and support our loved ones, food on the table, roof over our head. We cannot skip that component that mental health impacts this area. And what I do is I work with organizations where I go into their sector and I get to know their space. I get to know their culture. What's your work culture here? Well, what would you like to see from your employees? And then we start bringing these really tough areas that are often under the table, mental health ones, we bring them to the forefront. Because the key is if an employee of an organization, if their mental health is in a positive area, they're going to perform much better. A small example of this that I do with organizations, I walk in and I give them 2 examples. I go, here's case one. I walk in and I'm the boss here, I'm the leader here, and I walk in with my head down. And you're all looking at me, of course, because I'm coming in and my head's down. And I go all the way to my office. That's a case example one. And I ask them, write down how you feel, right? How do you feel in that moment? You saw me, I'm the leader here, I'm the boss here, and you're writing down how that makes you feel that my head's down. And then I go case two, and I go right back to the front door and I walk all the way in. But this time, my head's up, my shoulders are up. I'm looking at people in the eyes. I'm smiling, I'm waving, I'm interacting, and then I make my way all the way to my office. And I ask them, I said, please write down how you feel with the second one. And that's mental health. That's within your organization. You're looking at building relationships, connection, showing that, hey, you're a person, I'm a person. You matter, I matter. Let's move forward together. Let's show vulnerability.
Well, tell us about, give us some best practice tips for the married couples out there on how to have a healthy marriage.
Best practice tips. You know, Curtis, there's a good amount of these that we find online. You can get on TikTok, on Instagram. Maybe you check out a good book by Gottman or The Five Love Languages by um, Gary Chapman. When we look at a relationship, there's certain areas that I encourage the individuals to look at. And what we do is we branch them off. We branch them off in a way of, if you've ever seen the Wizard of Oz, you got Dorothy and she's walking on this yellow brick road. So I like them to think about your yellow brick road. This is your walkway that's going to lead you all the way to, those end days of your life. And you want it to be as successful as possible. So each brick represents something in your life. And we look at brick by brick. And maybe one of those bricks is that, hey, we got to talk about money. And it's often conversations that couples avoid. So then together and individually, I work with them on discussing aspects of money. Who's the saver, who's the spender? What does it look like when the bank account gets to a certain low amount? How does it make you feel? If your spouse went out and spent 20, 50,000 on a car, came back excited, how would you react? So that's one brick. And then we work on that brick to make sure it's solid and steady. And then we go to another brick. And maybe the other brick is, what's your definition of betrayal? Most of us look at betrayal and we think, well, betrayal is obviously cheating. You go out there to sleep with somebody. But it may not be that simple. Betrayal may be that one partner goes into the bank account, pulls out 100 grand, and they spend it on something with a great idea that maybe they want to invest in properties. And they're excited about it. But that could be betrayal. So we look at that brick and ensuring that it's solid. And what's interesting is there are fundamental bricks for all couples. And then there's specific bricks that are individual to the couple that I'm working with or the individual I'm working with. So there could be a cultural component to it. That making sense to you?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. And that brings me to my next question. What should all couples do before they get married?
Mm, that's another good question. When you look at what should I do before blank, I think that's such a pivotal question to ask yourself. What should I do before I get married? And you're thinking about it because you know that marriage is it's a big step. But not only that, if you're in the US and you're listening to this podcast and you know that here in the US, that number is scary. You roll the dice and you're like, well, damn, it's a 50% chance I may not make it. That's a large, right? That's a significant number. So it's vital for us to look at the mindset that goes behind what do I need to do, just me, before I take that leap? And what do we need to do collectively as us before we take that step? And then there's ample components that go in there. Some are collective with the couple. Again, it could be discussing maybe cultural differences. It could be roles. Maybe one person grew up in a house where they saw dad and dad did nothing in the house. He worked and he took care of the yard. That person says, well, that's my role. It seemed to work for them. It's going to work here. But their partner's like, whoa, slow down. That's a little bit different than what I saw. I saw my dad and I saw both my parents take on equal responsibility. So before you get to this pivotal place, this milestone, this really wonderful place, you look at doing that early work. And then there's the aspect of just you that has nothing to do with your partner. And this is where I engage in one-on-one coaching. And it's nice. I'll get to see individuals from everywhere, across the map, Australia, all the way in Canada. And we look at individual areas. We look at, well, what's your personality type? And maybe it's, someone sharing with me, I want to get married and, I can tell that I'm an introvert. So then we're looking at, well, maybe that means that if you go to work and then you get home and your partner's waiting for you to go do something fun, you're going to be saying, whoa, slow down. Because as an introvert, you may want to use that space after work to recover, right? To get your energy back. Whereas if your partner is an extrovert, they're going to go from one energy situation, like a party, get really excited. It's going to energize them a bit more, and they're going to go to another one. So you have these two areas, Curtis, that go into this early work. One is heavily focused on just an individual level of accountability. What is that work that you're doing? The second looks at what is the collective work that we're going to agree to do.
Okay, so give us some best practice tips for self-care. Self-care is very important and we all need to practice it.
Well said. Well said. I've met many individuals, and at some point I wrote this down. When I ask that question, I'll sit down with a coaching client and I'll ask that very question, Curtis. I'll say, tell me about your self-care practices. And they'll look at me like I'm asking them, I'm speaking in a different language. And they're like, what? Like self-care practices, what is that? And after I've noticed that year after year, I started to keep an eye on it and go, there's something here. And that's a great place to start if you're listening to this podcast, to look at what is your definition for self-care. Write down self-care, bullet point underneath. What does that mean to you? And from there, what you wanted to look at is you wanted to pull self-care into this pie chart, right? So a pie chart is exactly what you're thinking. You got a big old pie, and then it's divided into these sections. You got self-care that could be focused on physical, self-care that could be focused on emotional. Maybe you got one category that's your creative self-care. And you see where I'm going here. You got these different categories. Each one needs attention. So maybe for me, physical self-care is that if I'm coaching clients, and often for me, coaching clients means that I'm either sitting down or we are walking and talking. That may mean that my back's going to hurt by the end of the week. And if I feel my back and go, you know what, it's fine, just suck it up, keep going. Next week it's going to be even worse. That's just going to progress into hurting more and more and more. So that physical category, I want to give it attention. I want to hold accountability and be able to say, okay, I'm going to take a break by maybe getting a massage or by stretching, doing some somatic exercises, body-like exercises. The creative side, same aspect. So again, if you're listening to the podcast and you're looking at self-care, start with the definition of it. Once you have that, break it up into these quadrants that go into this pie chart. And then you're going to have categories for each component of your life. And you want it to feed each one. Think about them like a plant. The plant needs sun, it needs some soil, some good water. You feed it, it's going to grow, it's going to look beautiful, and you'll feel just like that. But when you start not paying attention to it, and you're listening to this podcast and you know exactly what that means. When you start ignoring it and avoiding it, not at first, it won't poke you at first, but you give it a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, and it'll start showing up in different ways.
Well, what does every couples therapist want us to know?
I should go around and ask that question. What does every couples therapist want us to know? I'll speak. Maybe I'll speak more from my end as a licensed therapist that works with couples. As a coach, where I work with couples here in the U.S., international as well. If you're listening, as you're listening and you're looking at, here's what I'd like for couples to know, is I'd like for you to know that there's work that can be done. And the work often extends beyond the knowledge that we hold. So many of us, we fall into this category that we build a relationship and we build it with the best skills that we have. I think it was Maya Angelou that said, we do the best we can with the skills and knowledge that we have. So that part makes sense. And then from there, our culture impacts it. Our microsystem, which is like the immediate environment around you, that impacts how you show up, not just in your marriage or intimate relationship, but all relationships with others and with yourself. So when I look at, and when I'm sharing this with you, and I'm echoing it, there's work that can be done. It literally means that looking at what systems do you have in your life? Are you reading self-help books? Are you working with a coach? Are you bringing in individuals and systems into your life that know maybe 10% more than you do? But that 10% is going to get you to that next step that you wanted to get to. And maybe that could be recovering from an affair. Maybe that could be that you want a job promotion. Maybe that means that you just opened up a business, but things aren't going well. I find that sometimes it's extremely difficult for us to acknowledge that we may not know everything. And there's like this humbleness to it that when you accept that, And when you bring in help, you start to you start to really enjoy that process. Maybe not right away, but once you see that fruit grow and grow into this nice apple tree, you start to enjoy it.
So tell us about your book. I know you're an author, so tell us about your writings and what we can expect when we read them.
There's a book that I worked on called Rebuilding Us, and it focuses heavily on affair recovery, which is a very tough topic for a lot of individuals to actually want to even do. After an affair, it's such a traumatic experience that many want to just put it under the rug and say, hey, let's just get over this and try to make this work without talking about it. But it comes back. It comes back and it's loud. And it not only hurts the relationship, but it tends to hurt the individual's life. So what the book does, and this I learned from the clients that I worked with. After working with them for a while, I started to hear this message of, we both need accountability. Like we both need a system to go off of. So with the book, you have these phases that take you through an affair recovery. And there's parts for each partner. So they're both held accountable. There's two people, right? That's part of that affair. And they go in together to this book. So it's a mixture of a literature book that you're reading and gaining education, as well as a workbook that you're engaging in exercises. And as you go through the phases, the goal, of course, is to heal and to recover. And you're coming out stronger. And I do want to share this right away. By no means, and this could cause book sales to go down, but I honor integrity. By no means is that a fix it or a this will get you this perfect solution that you're looking for. What it is, it's a tool. It's a tool just like any other tool in your life. I believe in it. I've worked very hard on it. I've had many coaching clients that I've worked with that have gone through it, found it successful. It's a tool and a tool you can utilize. It may level you up a couple of points. And then maybe after that, you may want something a little more intensive. And that happens at times where I'll have coaching clients that go through the book. And then next thing you know, they're reaching out to me because they're wanting direct coaching access. So that can take place too.
Or tell us about any current or upcoming projects that you're working on that people need to know about.
Current and upcoming projects. Well, I have something for your audience. And this goes into the current upcoming projects. I noticed that a lot of individuals may not be ready for that step of direct access to work with a coach, work with this professional. So they may be looking for something more behind the scenes. And throughout the years, I've had this school, if you will, that I've created that has different courses that focus on mental health growth and transformation in your life. There's courses in there that go into helping couples after an affair. There's courses that speak on what to do when you're struggling with anxiety. And you're going to see a lot of those courses in that school. For your audience, I'm going to give them a discount code. All they have to put in there is living the dream, all caps, and you'll be able to see that discount. It's nice because sometimes it's a bit scary, right? It's a bit difficult to go and put yourself in that space, and you may not be ready. So you start with these courses, and you'll see that they're going to be tools that are going to move you forward. And then if you find, hey, this is working, that may be enough. That may solve the exact issue that you're struggling with. And then if you find that, you know what, I still want a little bit more, then there's that next step where you can engage in coaching.
Okay, throw out your contact info so everybody can keep up with everything that you're up to and also close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if it was something that I forgot to touch on that you would like to talk about, any final thoughts you have for the listener.
I appreciate that, Curtis. You can reach me. Best place is at my website, Juan B. Santos. That is Juan B as in boy, SANTOS.com. On the website, you're going to see all the ways to communicate with me, whether it's courses or if you're wanting direct access to coaching. There's an application process, and I'll be very honest with you. I do not work with everyone because I don't want you to go in the wrong direction. So this application process allows you to come in and say, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's some past experiences I've gone through. And then from my end, I'm able to look at that and review it to see if we're a good fit. Once again, I do not want anyone that I work with to find themselves in a situation where it's not a good fit. I want you to find that fit that's going to move you forward and propel your life. If there's a closing thought, and I appreciate you, Curtis, presenting that. It was really wonderful for your audience, and a lot of gratitude from my end. Closing thought that I'd want to share is giving yourself time, and I mean this in all ways, giving yourself time each day to, it's maybe a little bit of odd exercise, but I think you'll find it really beneficial. You confront the mirror, and I mean that in all ways. You get in front of the mirror, and while in front of the mirror, you could practice two different items. One is you find something to show gratitude for, and it could be directly to you, like I'm grateful for these hands that I have, or it could be I'm grateful for the people that have supported me in life. Maybe name them out. And the second one is you look at growth. What's something you could do that day that can propel you forward? So the second one could be, today I'm going to smile at 5 strangers. Today I'm going to play 10 extra minutes with my kids. Today I'm going to tell my partner blank positives. And that practice each and every day, it hits these 2 core areas of your life. Give it 7 days, and you'll start to see this really wonderful effect. It's a practice that I give majority of the individuals that I work with. It's free, right? You just need that mirror. You need you. It takes like 30 seconds, maybe less. And it connects heavily to mental health, to developing a strong mindset. That's my 2 cents, Curtis.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, those 2 cents are priceless. Juan B. Santos, please be sure to check him out. Follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. If you know somebody that might need Juan's service, have them to get on the website, check it out, pick up that book. If you have any guests or suggestion topics, cjackson102 at cox.net is the place to send them. As always, thank you for listening. And Dr. Santos, thank you for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Curtis. Much appreciated.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.